Hello everyone and welcome back to episode number 9 of the Bloodborne Ultimate Walkthrough. We're going to finish up part 2 of the Forbidden Woods and then go on to fight the boss named the Shadows of Yharnam. Okay, so we're just going to visit this second tombstone here and go to the Forbidden Woods. Alright, so we're going to quickly head over to this opening here. This is a shortcut that we unlocked at the end of last episode. Go ahead and stand on this pressure plate. Now, I will say that this area that we're about to complete is very confusing. It's really easy to get lost in, so I'm going to do my best to keep us on a path, but we're definitely going to wander around. You just can't help it. We should have gotten this item up here before we finished. Yeah, we did get that. Okay. So, this area to the left is where we came from to open up this shortcut. So we don't need to backtrack over there. Don't worry about that guy. What we'll do first off is head down here. And if you look around the left, we'll see these items. Go ahead and grab this. Get the Frenzied Cold Blood. And then we're going to head back to this wall here. You want to kind of try to pay attention to your surroundings. So torches, these lantern type things, will help you understand the main paths. But also, if you start off on the right side here, it's pretty easy to stick to a path if you stay on the wall. Like, you're either going to stay on the wall, you're going to go to the center, or you're going to stay on the left edge of the zone. So I like to split this up into 3 zones, essentially. There's this gap here, so you have to run and jump over it. And this is a good opportunity to look at the type of enemy that we'll be facing here. Those guys are very easy to kill. Don't get intimidated by these enemies here. The bigger snakes are much harder, but we've also got a good way to deal with them. Make sure that you've got your axe, and I want you to make it in its extended form. Okay, we're just going to jump across here. We're going to come across an executioner in a moment, and they're going to be on the left, I believe, right behind this tree. So we want to head around it. And once you can see it, go ahead and lock onto it, move slowly, and we're going to power up an R2. Should kill it. Now, sometimes it'll get stuck there, but it'll fall down eventually. Don't worry about going crazy to try to loot that, because we don't want to drop down. The main reason we don't want to drop down is because we want to keep track of where we've been. If we just start diving all over the place, chasing after loot, we're going to lose track of where we've been, and it's going to be much harder to get everything. While you're on the high ground, it could be a good idea if you want to survey the land looking around. But again, it's really confusing here. So using the walls and the lanterns and the edges of the boundary is probably the best way to go about understanding where you're at. So just drop down here on this gap, and to tie into this place, you're going to see we're back here where we grabbed that Frenzied Cold Blood. So, just trying to give you a better understanding of the zone while we go through it, because that's probably the most difficult part of today's episode, and the biggest reason why I've always feared doing this episode, because it's really hard to put together. Alright, so what you can do with these snakes is very simple. We're going to kill them the same way every time. Just going to run in, bop them one time, and back out. When there's 2 of them here, you can sweep. Sweeping attack does more damage, so you'll get both in one kill. If you can ever do a charge-up attack, you'll definitely kill it in one swing. But the safest way to do it, the way that you'll basically never take damage, is if you run in, hit, and then dodge out. They're just not fast enough to attack you that way, even if they're staring right at you. Okay, so these are going to be some shinies. Now, the shinies are good, and there's a reason they give you these here, and we should have plenty in our inventory. But this is going to help us determine where we've been. So I want you to go ahead and equip these. And I usually wouldn't use an item like this, but it is helpful in this zone for that reason. Also, as cool as this armor looks, it's not our best option here. I think so far the Charred Hunter Garb is pretty solid. And it's also going to be what we want to wear for the boss fight. So just go ahead and throw that on while we're here. And then for the helmet, just put on the Hunter hat. Alright, cool. So, Molotov cocktails and shining coins would be the 2 consumable items that we'll probably want to have in our inventory. But Again, you just want to drop a coin every once in a while, and you can see these from pretty far away, and they are definitely distinct. You won't confuse them for another item, so it's good. Here we can see that we've got a boundary. Now, you can drop down here. There's nothing necessarily preventing you from starting these areas a little bit sooner. You know, to be honest with you, I've never tried to drop all the way down. That could be a death. So, but there are areas where we're going to get a little bit closer where we can drop down. So that's not like an out of bounds, but without trying to kill myself right now, I'm not entirely certain if we can survive that. That's not the direction we're going to head anyways, but I wanted to show you how you can't stay in here for a second hit. Watch this. You're always going to take damage. I shouldn't say always. You might get lucky and they might be a little bit slow on the attack, but you're never going to have the pure safety like you will if you hit and dodge. So we get out. Sometimes they won't even attack. We'll come back in, hit, roll out, let them do their attack. And that's just a surefire way to continue to get kills. No problems. You're never going to be in danger that way. Alright, so let's go ahead and top off our health. We do more damage when we have that anyway, so it's important. Again, when I complete a little area, I want to backtrack. That way I can keep tabs on where I'm going. So this area where we start is a little bit more narrow. As we proceed through, it's going to get wider and wider. I want you to move very slowly through this zone. You should be able to hear the enemies before you see them half the time. But some of these little snakes don't make as much noise as the bigger ones. So they're not as easy to see or as easy to hear, but you should be able to spot them if you're moving slowly. Again, we don't need to like really rush the situation. They're slow moving and they're no threat as long as you come in there with a planned attack. So we'll kind of bounce around going on the right side to the center and then to the left. So let's take care of this. This is where we've got the executioner, where we knocked off the ledge. Usually executioners will drop blood vials, so yep, there we go. I always want to make sure you get their loot. Now again, I know this area can be intimidating to a lot of people because it's just confusing as hell. And it's easy to die if you get caught off guard. But if you take this methodical and have a tactical approach to it and make sure you know where you're at all times, you're not going to get surprised by anything. And that's the key here. So when you see an enemy, kill the enemy. Don't go after loot until you don't see anything else. So we have lots of enemies right here. And it's really easy to take these guys out. So there's no reason that you should hold that off. Alright. So things look good here. We see some enemies over there. We're going to go ahead and grab the loot behind us before we forget. It's always good to check around corners. Even though there's nothing over here, you get to see what's ahead of you. So when you complete an area like this, I kind of try to put the coin in a central area that I might see from other zones. So I can see the path there, and I don't necessarily know what to call this guy. These dudes have a snake inside of them. Any of these guys that you see here will have the same way. You just want to get to them as quickly as possible. Do a charge-up attack after you interrupt their metamorphosis phase. Basically, they'll start to try to change, and if you can interrupt that, they're less aggressive. So then you can do a charge-up attack, do a lot of damage, and of course take them out without them transitioning to that snake burst phase. If they make some kind of scream, they'll actually summon 4 of the smaller snakes, which isn't really a problem in my opinion. Sometimes I want them to do that because it's a good way to farm off items. You can get blood shards, things like that, and you can literally kill all 4 enemies with a charged up spin attack like that. So it is definitely really good for us in certain controlled scenarios. Now, of course, if you're concerned about taking damage or something like that, then you want to be careful, but Again, like I said, these enemies are really, really easy to control. So here we go. We're back. We can see the river, the ravine, whatever you want to call it. And this is great because we're starting to see our coins. If we keep an eye on the path, we've got these barriers here, like these torches, the pathway, the coins, the walls, the river. So this is how we keep an eye on where we've been and where we proceed. That was the biggest difficulty I had when I played through this place my first few times. It's really hard to keep focused on where you've been. Now you'll see a lot of the times I don't lock on to targets. That's my personal preference. I believe I play a lot better without locking on. And I think if you can get good at that, you should play that way. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be for everybody. People are going to struggle like that as well. But it's just up to you, you know? Obviously, if you play better by locking on, then definitely lock on. And there are situations where I will lock on. But I like having the full control over where my character's going to roll. When you're locked onto an enemy, you're kind of stuck in a circle of navigation. So your movement is limited to compared to when you're not locked on. So you basically have to make that determination on your own. All right. So continuing on this path here, there's our first sight of a big snake. And those guys have range attack. They will spit poison at us, and you can see they're surrounded by a lot of little snakes too. So there's a couple different ways to go about that. Normally, the best way you want to do it is to try to deal with the little snakes as quickly as possible. So you can try to get them to chase you, you can kite them towards you with range attacks. But if you have the opportunity to, you always want to look for a way to flank the big snake. If you can get behind the big snake, that's the best way to do it, because then you can do a charge up attack and deal a lot of damage and probably avoid getting hit by anything. The best way to approach that, if you don't have a way to flank it, is to charge the big snake so that it'll be doing its ranged attack. By the time you get into it, it'll try to transition to a melee attack, but you'll be moving so fast that you can get behind it and hopefully charge up a big attack. They do a lot of damage, so you want to be up close so the snake head will fire above you, and you want to be dodging to the side if at all possible. So, like, doing a target lock against a big snake can be helpful. So here we go, we're going to come around this corner here. And you can see we've got this guy right here with his back towards us, but we got the little snake to his side. So there's no real way that we can sneak up to him without that snake coming at us, therefore alerting him. So what I like to do is charge this guy and deal big damage, or you just want to get up there and just power up an attack as quickly as possible. Once you see him turn around, that's your best bet. Because the snakes, what we've learned so far, they're very easy to deal with. So those should be your secondary concern here. And the only reason we like to deal with them first around the big snake is because there's usually 3 or 4 around the big snakes. And if you can clear them out before you rush into the big snake, it's always a preferred way to attack. Alright. Once you kill enemies, you can clear loot. Again, we can see this is where we were before. Remember, we took a peek over around that corner. And now we see this loot here. So we'll go ahead and drop a coin. Help us keep track of where we've been. You can take a peek. See what's around waiting for us. These big tombstones are good markers too. But there's plenty of them, so it's not necessarily the easiest way to tell where you've been. So high ground can help. Sometimes I'll leave an item in a higher place until the end of the zone. That way I can keep tabs on where I'm in based off of the shiny loot. There's one in particular that we'll be pointing out eventually. It's basically a mask. Alright, so I think this is our first opportunity to get a kill on a big boy. I think they're alone. So what we're going to do is run in and get us a charge up. We're going to flank it. Once you take that damage, get out of there. You're not always going to get hit there, but all you need to know is that if you do get hit, you need to immediately get out of there. With our weapon selection, we're not going to be fast enough to land a second attack there after taking damage. Now, if they don't hit us, which will happen probably half the time, then you can go ahead and stay in the pocket and deal the finishing blow. But your main objective is survival. You're not going to out damage that enemy right there because they stagger you immediately. So it's very dangerous to try to sit there and trade with them. So I was wrong. There was an additional enemy there. Looks like it was one snake. Alright, so get to the higher ground. You can hear enemies, of course. Typically, if you can't locate something that you can hear, there's probably a second level, usually underneath you, where the snakes are. There's a lot of verticality to FromSoft games. So usually when you're hearing something but you can't put eyes on it, it's going to be close by, underneath, or above, depending on where your character is. So here we go. We see some coins for us. That's good. All of this is very helpful in keeping us going in the right direction. So we do hear some snakes. Good audio is extremely important, especially in a game like this, where you've got blind spots. So this is a good opportunity for us. You can get kind of a little bit of vision on that, and because we can see the skinny snakes, we know that that is a hunter, I guess we'll call him. So we've got a couple different directions we can head here. This part of the zone is nice because we have this very red, obvious area. So I would call this like the heart of the zone because this is where pretty much all paths lead. So what I want to do is flank this big snake. And even though we've got the hunter over there to the right, and they've got a couple buddies, the two buddies that are with them have their back turned towards us. So if we can rush down here and get the kill on the big snake, who's surrounded by little dudes, but we have the opportunity to get the flank on him, we want to do that first. And then we can circle around and reassess the situation if you feel at all that you're in danger. So we did good there. We got some nice damage in. And while the snake is moving this direction, you can actually circle around. Now the big snake is basically dead. Anything we hit it with is going to kill it. So we can just move in and do a fast attack. And it's dead. And then you can just roll through and deal with these guys. Power up attack. Like I said, if they're in mass, you can kill them very easy. Alright. So what I want to do is circle around again. We know where the fancy dudes are, and that item right there is basically bait. If we go grab that, they're going to try to kill us from behind. So again, audio cues are what you're focused on here. Obviously this sounds like a dangerous place, so you want to keep an eye out. You can see that guy right there. They're all facing the other direction, but if you grab that item, he's going to get aggro. So he's the problem. The other two are not a problem. In fact, I would consider dragging this guy out first, but we'll go ahead and try it this way. Alright, this should be good for all of them. You're going to charge up again. And charge up again. Like I said, the great thing is, when they're not already having that second phase, when they don't have the snakes popping out of their chest, you can just continually stagger them because they're in that transition phase. So those two guys aren't the problem. And as long as you can get the element of surprise on this first guy, then you're in a good spot. Now there's good loot here. Anytime we can get those thick boy upgrades, we want to get those. Honestly, this is a great place to take many of your weapons to +6. So these are the guys that are making all the noise. We get a little bump on our shiny coins here. Let's go ahead and throw those down. So here's where I want to use some Molotovs. If we get lucky, they might stack. Alright, and then I'm going to come in. And you just want to swing away when you land. Swing away. It's dangerous. And you can waste more Molotovs if you want to be extra careful. I personally don't give a shit about that. Like, if we happen to die, that's the whole point of, like, taking the path methodically. So we know where we've been, that we've secured all the loot, and that we can just go straight to the area that we died at without worrying about missing things behind us. So that's a good thing. Obviously, if you want to put on some antidote in this zone, you can. I didn't feel the need to. But it also, one thing that you want to consider, which I am admittedly not the best at, is there's no reason to hoard things. Like, there's not many opportunities where using antidote is going to be a thing. So in a zone like this where you're taking poison damage, there's really no reason to not have it. So it's kind of foolish by me to do it that way, but that's just how I be sometimes. All right. So now that we've gotten rid of those guys, it's a lot more quiet around here. So that's good. Now we can focus on other potential threats without hearing all of that reverberating large snake boy in the cave sound. So we can see here we've got some little snakes. Let's go ahead and deal with those quick. Again, never take it for granted. And we can hear a big snake spitting at us. Alright, so this is a great opportunity to survey the land. We see we've got all these barriers here. So we want to use these trees to our benefit. I can already see what I want to do based off of the location. So that little snake over there, we're just going to run towards it on the other side. So we can get in our shots here. Cool. That patrolman down below is no problem because we're on the high ground. He can't get to us. So we're going to allow the smaller snake to come towards us so we can pick that off. And now we should be all alone with this big boy. So we have an opportunity to rush in there as well. Like I said, we want to try to get behind it. And we got directly behind it, so we did more damage there, and that's why it died on the first power-up attack. So, getting behind it is key. I know it was really hard to see there because it happened bang, bang really fast. The snake is occupying a lot of space here, but when you're running, this game is pretty good at allowing you to kind of use that momentum to ramp up the side of things. So, we were able to split up like that and get behind it. But if I wasn't running, if I moved in here a little bit slower, I'd be stuck. You know what I'm saying? So there's no way to flank it from this side. We had to run in there that way. Now, if you don't want to take that chance, of course, you can pepper it from range with your gun if you have blood tinge damage, things like that. I don't like to do that. I like to conserve as much as possible and use those items in scenarios where I'm really, really desperate to. Okay. So we'll go ahead and throw another coin there. We can see here we've got 3 coins in view. That's good. Definitely don't want to be stingy with the coins. There's really no purpose for holding on to those guys. All right, so this is a good viewpoint to point out here. That gate that we can see from here, we can't open from this side. So jumping down there doesn't benefit us right now. We're eventually going to get to here, so don't get over anxious to get to that. But eventually, that right there could serve as a shortcut to get to the boss. We've basically got 2 pathways to get to the boss. I don't choose to take this path, but of course you could. And I'll show you, when we do fight the boss, I'm going to show you a pathway to take in case you do die, because it is a rather tough fight. So, I myself probably die. Just showing you how to beat it. Alright. Let's see here. Got some snaky sounds. So this is a good opportunity to get some vision here. This is definitely a drop-down attack opportunity here. In fact, this is the best way to kill this guy because you don't have any other way to approach him and get behind. You can see he's crammed up in that corner there. But I don't necessarily want to drop down there yet because we haven't put eyes on the rest of the zone over there. So we could maybe want to clear that out a little bit before we do that. Might be dropping down into a bad situation. Specifically, we could alert this boar somehow. I know there's a couple roaming hunter type dudes. So we definitely want to handle them before we do any drop downs. Okay, so we'll get an opportunity to kill this boar because I can see there's no roaming guy walking around right now. So what we're going to do is get behind it. These guys are really loud and obnoxious. So the sooner you can take it out, the better you are. And as you can see, I keep my weapon in extended formation the entire time I'm in this zone. And for good reason. It's to keep distance between me and the enemy. Now here we've got both of those guys are next to each other. It's usually not this way. This is a little bit rare. I'm kind of surprised at the placement for these guys. That's not good for us. What we want to try to do here is maybe draw one out with a pebble. Because they're already in their second form, they'll most likely summon a bunch of snakes. So this will be our first opportunity to see that in this walkthrough episode. So I'm going to let these guys... Okay, now they kind of broke off a little bit. Just a little bit of separation. Alright, so there's the example of what he's going to do. We can get in there, deal a big chunk of damage. And as you can see, we heal through that from the regain phase because we know we've got 5 enemies essentially there to hit off of after we take 1 hit. So that right there is definitely worth going in and charging up. If you can hear them doing the scream and you're close enough to do damage to them, that's basically free shots to get big damage. So you want to take advantage of that for sure. I'm going to run up here real quick. I just want to make sure that we have gathered everything that I wanted to from this area. So here is the drop down zone where we get to the ravine where we were looking at from up above before. You can actually hear some really weird sounds if you pay attention. There's a gap here that we can jump over to get the item. Now that's the particular item that I was referring to where I like to leave it because we can see it from a lot of different locations and it helps us know where we are. So it is a landmark, so to speak. This is the only snake that I know of that drops down from the trees. And I'm not sure why, because it's like very delayed when it does. I think you would have to be really unlucky and just kind of stop underneath that tree to look at something. I mean, it's not a trap because there's no loot to grab right there. The loot's way down there. I don't really know what they were trying to do with it, honestly. We'll leave the backtrack here for a moment. We'll just remember that this is an area that we want to return to. All right. So we'll see if we can get the second roamer. Once I get that guy dealt with, then we'll go back and we'll do that drop down onto the big snake. You can see even though that other guy was wandering around and he was relatively close to us, he didn't care about the scream. So the scream is pretty independent of any other enemies. It's not going to call them towards you. What it does is it just summons those extra snakes. So we'll let him come towards us. We don't want to fight any more enemies at the same time than we have to. And it's kind of funny because eventually the boss that we're going to fight is 3v1. So this zone is really preparing you for fighting multiple enemies simultaneously. More so than some of the zones in the past. So this is good. We let them get all the... Oh, that's not the attack I wanted. All right, so when we lose that opportunity, I come in with L2s. L2 attack is really good in those situations as well. We're going to use L2 in a number of situations later on in this zone as well. So get used to L2 attack. It's a low, wide sweeping arc. There's some enemies in swamp-like area that are very low to the ground, and it's very helpful for us to be able to do that. And it's a really powerful hit too. So definitely take advantage of the L2. See, there's an L2. Depending on your strength and how high ranked up the level of the weapon is, you can one-shot these guys with the L2. I'm just teaching you guys different tactics because I know a lot of you playing along won't necessarily still be using the axe. You may have a new favorite weapon. I just continue to use it because I want to show people tactics with the most basic of weapons. So obviously if you've got a specialty weapon, then you're going to be more skilled with that. So we've got a couple different ways to go again. Oops, forgot we swapped to that. Alright, so like I said, once we killed the roamer, we're going to go back and do the drop down on the big snake. You want to stick to those ideas that you have, because otherwise you're going to leave stuff behind. So we know that we had the high ground to get to the big snake, so we need to go back. And I believe it was up here. Yep, we can start hearing it now. So because we don't deal finishing blow to the snake, what I like to do is get some Molotov damage on it. I'll probably throw 2. Now you could throw an oil urn on it and probably do a little bit better. But we did just enough to get the kill there. Perfect. Now as you can see, the snake has its back to this, and the only method of attack other than that drop down is to come face it head on. And I'm never going to recommend that in this kind of scenario because the snake just does too much damage. Alright. So we'll go ahead and drop a coin here. I almost pressed it on the Molotov. Good. And we see a snake here, so again, taking care of enemies that we see as quickly as we can. Never want to turn our back to even the weakest of enemies, if for any other reason than the fact that they're going to keep us from hearing stuff that we need to hear sometimes. Alright, so here we get a nice sight line on a drop down if you want. This area to the right will eventually lead us towards the boss. And also that gate that I pointed out earlier that was closed. And we can open it from this side only. To the left is a watery area that's going to lead us towards some more of these low-lying creatures. And a nice hoglet that wants to pretty much stomp on us. The hogs are really easy. Don't allow yourself to get scared by them. If you rush them, they will scream, and then it gives you an opportunity to charge up an R2 attack and deal really big damage. Now, of course, if you can get behind them, you'll kill them in one charge up. But if you get beside them, you'll still do a lot of damage, and then you want to immediately do a dodge to stay to the side of them. They'll do like a body slam type of hit, and then you can get one more attack and you should be able to kill them. Alright, so we can see things kind of lining up here. We see 2 coins that we've got. One there and one behind us. And then these areas to the side were basically drop downs if we wanted to take advantage of that. So yeah, we're starting to piece this all together. Right? So there's the that's not the that's the item that I wanted to point out. So that is the mask, and we'll go ahead and take care of that, and I'm going to show you what that leads us to. So we have to get on the left side of this tree trunk. So we'll approach it like that. Let's see. So you basically want to go around here. What we don't want to do is cross over this because we won't have the opportunity to jump over. Sorry, I got myself mixed up for a second. Like I said, I knew it was going to happen. It's pretty much impossible to keep this stuff fresh in your mind. The moment you leave this zone, you just want to forget about it. It's so confusing. Alright. So what we're looking for is that overhang. When you can hear these little squiggly sounds, these weird, crazy noises that are going on down below there, you're in the right area. This little lip here is what we want to jump over. So now we're on the right path. We grab this item here. Now the tree trunk takes us down below, but we can't get this. We can't get the mask. I personally don't really think that attire set is a big deal. But obviously I want to take you guys through every opportunity to grab loot for yourself. So now we're here. We can grab this. Here's the final grouping of that attire set. So now you've got the whole grave set right there. And this is just going to dump us down. Boom. So we're gonna head back again to where we just were. And instead of jumping across, this time we're going to fall down. Now, the important thing to know is we're approaching this area from this drop down specifically because we want to approach the zone from this side. I do not want to approach the zone from the other area because we get the opportunity to flank the enemy in almost every scenario here. It's crazy, you only do 75 damage there. I can't explain that one. Alright, so we're coming from behind here, and some of them will see us, but the real important thing is we're going to get the jump on the toughest enemy down here, and you can kind of see it off in the distance already. Behind that one blue guy, there's some kind of like tentacle flailing, little like hair-like thing. That's what we're really going to have a struggle with if we don't get the jump on it. When we come from the other side, that area is all open, and they're spellcasting enemies that can basically machine gun us down. So one thing that we can do is if we can get this blue guy to see us, this is better. Because we want him to come at us first. Because we don't want to fight him while we're fighting the other two. This allows us some more freedom. So now when we run in, we can do some more damage without being... And I'm going to throw L2s. Yeah, so L2s, wide sweeping attacks. It makes sure that I'm not going to hit just one of them. Because we're running. So when we're running, I don't really want to press R1 because that's going to do a jab and I'm probably going to miss one or both. But the L2, running or not running, you're going to do a wide sweeping attack. So it's really, really beneficial. And that's an important item that we just picked up. I'll go ahead and show you guys what that was. So this anti-clockwise metamorphosis, it's going to raise our stamina. That's important. We're going to pick up the clockwise metamorphosis very shortly, which will raise our hit points. There's lots of good loot here. For good reason, this zone really sucks. It's a pain in the ass. So they reward us properly for our troubles here. Again, these guys will come towards you. So there's really no reason to put yourself at risk when you don't know what else is in this zone. Just let them come at you if they already see you. It's the best way to approach it. Now we're pretty much out of most of the danger here. So we're going to go through this cave. We're going to run into like a glowy little swamp area. Fireflies. Lightning bugs, I guess. And this is safe. Don't be worried about this. But eventually you'll hear or see the pig. Yeah, you can see it right now. So it's got its butt to you. Now you can get this potentially. It's already walking, so I'm just gonna run at it. So either way you cut it, these things are really easy to deal with, especially in a big open area like this. You just run at it. It's not gonna, you're always gonna get the first attack. If it's running at you, if for some reason it surprises you and it's charging you, get behind something, take an angle so it runs into the wall. If it does that, it's gonna crash, and then you can deal massive damage to it by getting behind it. All right, so let's continue this way. What we're going to do here is open up our second shortcut. Now, we've got one snake man around the corner, and he's the only enemy that we have to worry about here. So, we can handle this guy safely. I think we might be able to charge up through the tree here, which is kind of silly. So, let's see. Nope. He's just a little bit far away. But you can see how easy it is to deal with that because you're going to heal through the attack. So as long as you get through the majority of the timing of your charge up attack, they're not going to damage you enough to make it worth... they're not going to hurt you enough to where it's not worth that attack. Now you can go about it, poke, you know, like poke, jab, you can do that because of the extent of our weapon's range, but there's no reason to. Here we go. This is the Cog Tower, I guess we'll call this. And that elevator is just on the other side of the other elevator that we've got. So I'm not going to head back to the starting zone yet. I want to continue clearing out the zone, and no reason to respawn these enemies. We're in no real danger. As long as we continue to play smart and methodically, we're not really going to put ourselves in any kind of bad spots here. Honestly, the only death that you should suffer in this zone, if you're playing the way you should, is the boss, and potentially getting unlucky on one of those drop downs of the big snakes. Sometimes it can happen. They can get super aggressive. So if you feel like you've got a lot of blood echoes and don't want to risk it, you can definitely go back. But in my opinion, it's not worth it. All right. So we can see the coins. Always a welcome sign. It's like, yeah, okay. We've made good progress. We've covered most of the area. Now let's see what's left for us to get at here. So this would be the area that pig was roaming. We killed it already. Very close to here. So it would continue to stamp down here and then probably get to the edge of this water and turn around and come back. In this root system here, there's some dudes. I don't know what to call them. I kill them with L2. Or they kill me. So if you take damage, you immediately want to look to the next enemy to regain that damage. Nothing new there. We've been talking about that since the beginning of time. Grab the loot. Dissipating Lake. We'll take a look at this as well. This one increases bolt defense. Bolt is the elemental, what you would maybe consider electricity. Which is kind of funny because the boss, 2 of the 3 combatants in the boss fight are actually weak to bolt. So maybe that's a little hint there. Go ahead and kill this dude. You see the pig off in the distance. Again, I handle him the same way I handle all of them. Pigs are super easy. I think the first one you ever fight in this game is really the only challenge because it's in this narrow area and you're not sure how to engage with it. Your first experience, you know? All right, so this area down here is a glimpse at the boss zone. You can see that fog gate there. But, yeah, that's fun to be had very soon. Down here is the fork that leads us to the boss. We're gonna check. I'm pretty certain this does not wrap around, but I want to make sure real quick. I think this is only serves as a drop down. Yup, okay. So if you wanted to get by the pig a little bit easier, you could run up this way. You're gonna drop down, and you can't get through here. So you need to immediately run this way, and then just run to the right of this flame here. The pig will never be fast enough to catch up to you, unless you're just like giving the pig, well, basically firing off a flare gun well before you get there. There's no way it's going to be able to react to you fast enough. So down, if you're heading downhill, you're headed towards the boss. Know that. And there's no gate or anything like that. You just walk into the zone, and the boss fight will begin. So be aware of that. It's not going to be very crystal clear that you've got a boss fight there. So here we've got a snake dude who's going to charge up. We've been over this a couple times. You get the opportunity to kill them really easily. You always want to get aggressive. They'll never be able to react fast enough. So here's the Clockwise Metamorphosis that I was talking about. And let me make sure. Yeah, we can't get over there. Sometimes I doubt myself. Nope, we're good. So now we can go up this little ramp here. And this is going to bring us back pretty much full circle. We're mostly complete with this zone now. I always like to try to make this jump over here. Let's see what we got. Oh, big fail. Okay, so now we can see the coins, everything, we're good. We've cleared out this area. So what I want to do now is hit to my belt. We're going to do a bold hunter's mark. And we're going to reawaken. Don't use the regular hunter's mark. Hopefully you know that by now. That'll kill you, and it'll leave your blood echoes behind. So bold hunter's mark is the beneficial one. All right. We're going to go back to the dream. We need to spend our blood echoes, make the appropriate upgrades, prepare ourselves for the boss fight that awaits us. Alright, so before I ever spend blood echoes on my attributes, I always want to make sure that my weapon is fortified and has the best blood gem fortification available. So we've got a couple different types of weapons here. Some of you would consider using the Tonitrus. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But some of you would consider using this because it's got its own bolt attack to it. But we haven't been upgrading that weapon. So for me, it's one of those rare opportunities where you would use this weapon and probably not use it many times after. So I would rather use my hunter's axe and basically work with the one that I've been using the whole time. So what I want to do is focus on improving the stuff that I know I'm going to use long term, and not just have like a one-trick item. The only time I upgrade a one-trick is if I'm really struggling. If I'm really struggling, sometimes that's going to give you the oomph you need to get through. Alright, so I know I want to upgrade my blunderbuss all the way. We've got our axe at +6 already. So upgrading these, the pistol, upgrading our blunderbuss, things like that, things that we'll actually use on a fairly regular basis, it definitely makes sense to do that. So let's go ahead and check out the blood gem fortification. What I'm going to do is I'm going to empty out all my my current imprints. That way I know I get the best one for my use case scenario here. Kirkhammer, strong but slow, really slow. Same with our axe, but the axe has that range, and it's going to be... The axe is just going to be better for this fight. I know we messed around with the Kirk hammer, hypothetically, because we're a strength build, but I'm going to discourage you from using that in this fight. But again, I'm just taking all the blood gems out because I want to see what we got. Alright, so we'll start with this right here. We're looking for attack or damage, anything like that. These arcane things like that, no good. No good. Alright, so we've got the best. We've got the best put in there. The boss that we're fighting are not beasts, they're humanoid. So this, for the meanwhile, it's really easy to see what's an upgrade and what's a downgrade, but what you'll see is it's kind of stacked. So like the second blood gem will be in the center. If you were looking at the right side of the screen, you can see it changes the effects on the center. That attack up 9.1% is our third blood gem. So they're kind of staggered out, so it's easy to see what's changing what. This is kind of a toss-up for me, this blunt attack up versus what we've currently got equipped. So we get add physical attack, which is basically any physical hits, and then the slow poison effect. You can see the total damage here. So 152. And then if I go to the blunt attack, we've got an overall increased damage here. So I'm going to take that because when we're dealing with this axe, most of the hits we're going to be making are going to be blunt hits. So we can focus on that. Let's make sure that there's not another change that we want. Like these physical attack up percentages are really good, and there's something that you should consider. So we're looking here like 99 and 71. So that's pretty easy math right there. That's 170 versus 166. So the math says don't do this. Eventually, it would be wise to do a percentage-based increase like that on a physical attack and not just blunt, but this is fine for now. All right, so now we'll do the first tier. And we'll just start with ones that we know are decent. See, this one has a better slow poison attack than this one, so plus 1.6, plus 3.1, but the same physical attack increase. So this makes way more sense. And then we'll just keep looking at it, see what changes. So this one's really good because the physical attack boosts up even higher. We're not really concerned about the poison effect, especially against bosses. They probably don't even have vulnerability to that. Now this is a big win right here. Physical damage up at full hit points. You'll be healing to full often. So I would say like half of your swings are going to be at full health in a boss fight. All right, perfect. We're not going to throw the stones in the other weapon right now. Other thing we want to do is make sure that we swap out our memories here. So we've got some like higher blood vial maximum. We don't really care about that. This increased defense we're going to want. But let's start with raise HP. Then we're going to go to raise stamina. And now we're going to put in... What was the third one? I'm going to do the increased defense. Boom. And then the blue one, it's not going to matter to us. It's... What you see here is the symbol of the league. So it's only during co-op. So you can put this on if you want. It's fine, but it's not going to take any effect. All right. Another thing, we've got 6 insight. You want to spend that currency if you can. One thing you might want to consider buying, bolt paper. We've got 9, so that's plenty right now. We could consider using some of that in the boss fight. Just want to look over. I usually spend this on armor or weapons if I have the opportunity to, and then I'll spend it on things like fire paper or bolt paper, or even cocktails if I need. But you can buy those with blood echoes too. So normally things that I can't buy with blood echo, I'll buy here at the insight. Excuse me. All right, let's go ahead and spend some blood echoes here.
Very well. Let me.
So I'm going to get strength up to 30. And then I'm going to start trading off vitality and endurance. Perfect.
Farewell, good hunter.
All right. So we will be using the fight, or the axe extended in the boss fight. This boss fight is tough. I'm going to go over some strategy that I think is going to work best for our character build currently. Let me get rid of this, that. And what we're going to do is only have the bolt paper here. That's all we want. So we got the bolt paper. We've got some of our highest physical and flame resistant armor on, so that's going to help us in the fight. And we've got the best upgrades on our weapons, so we're pretty much prepared as best we can be. So we're going to go back to the Forbidden Woods. And this pathway that I'm taking right now is what I want you to do if you have been killed in the boss fight. This is how you're going to get back to the boss. It's the best way to go, in my opinion. It's the safest way, but it's not fast. There's no fast way to get to the boss. It's really annoying. So we shouldn't have to kill anything, but you can if you want. So we're just going to run right through here. We're going to call up the elevator. Anytime you get to the bottom of these elevators, I want you to send it back to the top, because if you die, it's just going to save you this wait time. It doesn't take you near as long to send it back up as it does to wait for it. So when you get to the bottom, you just step off and then you run back over it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just pass this guy. No reason to fight him. Like I said, you can if you want, but I think it's just probably a waste of your time. So here we're getting to our second elevator. Again, when we get to the bottom of this, we're going to step off, then step back on to send it back up to the top. You'll do this each time. If you ever get killed by the boss, you're going to appreciate the fact that you sent this elevator up to the top. It's just one of those little things that helps prevent some of the rage from building up. Okay, so this enemy here, we can totally pass by them without threat. You can hear the pig that we killed earlier. So this is pretty simple. We've got the root system. So again, the pig screams. Don't need to worry about it. Wow, the camera is going crazy there. So the second pig over here. Again, I told you how we swing around this. Go to the right side of the fire. Pig's got no chance. So now, we're just going to head down. If you wanted to summon assistance, you can. Alright, so once we walk through this little archway here, the boss fight is on. I'm going to go ahead and try to explain this. So we're going to be fighting against 3 enemies. They're different. 2 of them have swords, but one of them uses a candle, which allows them to do fire damage. They'll add fire damage to their weapon. They'll cast like a fire arc, and what I would say is maybe like a 180-degree arc. And it's got pretty decent range on it, so you need to be careful about that. The other swordsman just seems to be an aggressive swordsman. They don't have any elemental imbuements as far as I can tell. And then there's a mace enemy who casts fireball constantly. In my personal opinion, I like to kill them first because they're easiest to get isolated. The other 2 swordsmen are chasing after you, so you can kite them far away from the caster and then return to the caster and deal significant damage without worrying too much about where the swordsmen are. And then basically you'll kill that guy first, then I would suggest killing the candle holder second, and then the regular swordsman third. This fight kind of goes into 3 tiers, and if you focus on one individual until death each time, you're going to do yourself a big favor, Because if you get them all low health in different phases without killing one, they all become stronger in each phase. So you just make the fight that much harder for yourself if you don't focus on one enemy at a time. It's also important to know that the bolt paper that we've got equipped here, while it's not going to like reduce the damage that I deal to the caster, it's not going to be as beneficial to them. So I don't use the bolt paper until I've killed the caster. And the caster is the guy who only fires fireballs at us, not the candle dude. The candle swordsman and the other swordsman take increased damage to bolt. So once that phase of the fight is done, when I've killed the caster, that's when I start focusing on equipping bolt on my weapon. Other than that, we're just going to try to stay away, heal, and keep circling. You want to keep moving. If you're stopped, you're in trouble. And I'll probably make mistakes. This isn't my best fight, but I feel like I've explained it and I can show you how to do it. All right, let's do it. So right off the bat, you can see the caster's in the middle. I like to stand at a distance to separate these guys. So I'm going to circle around a little bit. I want to get them as far away from one another as possible. There's lots of places that you can get stuck, so you need to be careful. All right, so we're about to get some good separation here. All right, I'm coming in for the caster here. So we can stagger them on hits. So it's really good to deal about 2 hits. You don't want to get too greedy. 2 hits are good. Anything more is you're basically asking for it. Now the swords and stuff like that can go through. Ooh. They can go through the tombstone, so you don't want to be counting on that too much. We got a little unlucky there. Get the health up to the maximum. Like you said earlier, when we applied those runes, we can benefit from that. Now, if we take too long into the fight, they'll transition into the next phases. So he's already trying to change. Kill him as fast as possible. Now we're going to go for the fire sword. And they've got these long-range attacks that are really hard to... that one right there. They both do it. But like I said, you can stagger them with hits. So when you get the opportunity, you take it. Always back off when taking damage. They can close the distance really well. But this is why we have the axe. This is exactly why we have the axe. Now, it's totally normal that you're going to hit the other enemy every once in a while. Like, don't let that bother you too much. Ooh. Yeah, that was dangerous. Alright, so when this guy gets low health, he's gonna start summoning snakes. And they're way different than any of the snakes you've fought so far. They're huge, so whenever he starts summoning stuff, you want to start dodging immediately. You can parry in this phase if you want. So here we go. I'm gonna bail out. They'll eventually disappear. Now, when he goes down to do that, you can charge up and attack too. You can't get that off under normal circumstances. So you can bait it out like this. Some of the good things about that is you can actually hit the snakes when he casts it. All right, so this is good. And he's dead. All right, perfect. You know, I don't know why, but every time we do a recording, I feel like I'm going to have my biggest failures yet. But that went pretty smoothly. How I described it pre-fight, the tactics we use, exactly what I want you to do. I feel like if you understand what you're trying to do and you don't panic, we're never getting greedy there. You can make that fight pretty simple, okay? So if you don't want to waste bolt paper, you don't have to. The increased damage versus like the danger that we're in, it's not a big deal. You can see I overheal essentially. I never allow myself to get in any danger of death. And when you're 2v1, the amount you need to heal drastically decreases. So you're pretty safe for the most part. Go ahead and light the lamp. Before you head back to the dream, I want you to do one more thing. Let's go ahead and get rid of this bolt paper so you don't accidentally use it, because that's expensive stuff. And we'll go ahead and put our usual things here, some pebbles and a Molotov. We've got one enemy waiting for us here. This thing you haven't fought before. It's really crazy, really weird. So, probably scare the shit out of you if I didn't tell you, so you're welcome. You can see it from here, this green thing. Oh, no. Okay. And again, no shame in extra swings. It's okay to take those extra swings, because if you do take damage or the enemy dies after you've killed it, if you're still swinging, you're going to regain that health. I think I've said that probably every episode, but it's one of the most important things to understand. So here's Byrgenwerth. We're absolutely not going to do Byrgenwerth yet. I just wanted you to get that lantern so that we can return here when we're ready. So go ahead and head back towards the Hunter's Dream. Not a whole lot has changed from when we last visited here.
Welcome.
We haven't gotten any new items or anything like that, so all we're going to do is improve our character. So you can choose between vitality or endurance. I'm going to keep strength at 30 for a little bit. I want to get my health bar and my stamina bar a little bit higher. Awesome. So that's going to be it for this episode, everybody. Thank you guys so very much for checking it out. Please do me a big favor. If you like these guides and you just want to hang out in the community, go join us on Twitch. Hang out with us on Discord. The information is in the video description, or you can just do bald and bearded on the Twitch URL. All right, everybody. Take it easy. We'll see you next time.